And I am so excited to talk to her. I've been trying to put this together for some time. And I'm very excited to talk to her today because I had the pleasure of working with Miss Queen as a client a couple months ago. And she just had some amazing results. And she's just she has such a beautiful and warm spirit. And she's so grounded. And it was just such a pleasure to work with her during this my herbal cleanse program. And I was kind of sad when it ended, because we didn't talk every other day like we did. So I'm so honored and excited to have her today to talk to her about what she was experiencing, her amazing results, and what plans she has going for us. So welcome, Miss Leah Queen.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Well, like I said, you look good. Your face is glowing. You can definitely tell whatever you're doing, sister, it looks good on you. Keep it up. Keep it
Oh,
up.
thank you. Thank you. Doing the program is great, but also, cutting back on stress is does wonders for your longevity.
Absolutely. You said the perfect word because you can't do one without the other, right? It's mind over matter.
Absolutely not right. You're right, because you have to have one in order to have the other.
Absolutely. All right, Miss Leah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? And so if I'm looking down because I have questions, I'm not a professional interviewer. I'm just gonna say that now. So I haven't figured out yet how to have questions like behind the screen. So I'm just gonna look at the questions. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what general health conditions you had, or that you may have been experiencing that led you to pursue natural measures.
So, almost 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with uterine fibroid tumors. I did not know that I had them. I didn't have any of the traditional symptoms that women have. I didn't have backache. I didn't have cramping. I just didn't have the traditional symptoms. And I discovered I had them because I go to the doctor like clockwork. I believe in women, going to get their mammogram once a year or more, depending upon family lineage or what their doctor suggests. I would go to the gynecologist once a year like clockwork. And this one particular time that I went, they could barely get the speculum inside my body, which is means for concern, obviously. So I had to take off work the next day, go to the hospital, get an MRI, and there they were. I believe it was 6 of them, at the time, and they said that they had never seen a case as aggressive as mine because, like I said, I go to the doctor like clockwork. The year before, I did not have them. So they had grown so aggressively in a year that they actually thought it was cancer. It wasn't cancer. Um, so when you're going through the test, I don't even think I slept the night before the test. So just to have that in your spirit, not knowing what it is, to know that something's wrong with you and not being able to have an answer for those 24 hours was very stressful. I felt like it made my condition worse because it was just a stressful experience. I had to come home and tell my family and let them know what was going on, take off work, go to the hospital, get the test, and it was confirmed that I had uterine fibroid tumors. I had never heard of them in my life, even though I believe they say at least 80% of Black women will be diagnosed in their lifetime with uterine fibroid tumors. No one ever said anything to me about uterine fibroid tumors. I didn't even know what they were. So I did what I was trained to do. I went to the library and I started researching and I started looking and I started trying alternative therapies because every gynecologist that I went to wanted to give me a full-fledged hysterectomy. And every time I considered getting the surgery, I would literally physically get sick. And I said, okay, this is not the right way. My body is telling me, no, don't do this. Even with the myomectomy, where they go in and they cut the tumors out, I wasn't really impressed with that because I asked the surgeon, I said, well, what will happen if they come back? And she said, well, we would just have another surgery. And I'm just thinking in my mind, there has got to be a better way because having a surgery is no walk in the park. The scar tissue alone is horrific from what I hear. I just didn't want to put my body through that. So I wound up sending a text message to all of my family and friends that were in my contact list and letting them know what was going on. And people had a lot of suggestions, everything from acupuncture to traditional Chinese medicine to stop doing dairy, to all these different things. So I just started doing my own research and looking, and, I would sometimes share with people my story, which would lead me to like another clue. It was like being like an investigator because I felt like the medical community could not offer me what I needed. Fast forward to, I believe it was last year, I wound up going to a local spa to get my nails done. And I talked to the woman who was doing my nails. I said, "Hey, does this spa have ionized foot baths?" And she said, "No, we don't have ionized foot baths, but I'm going to write down a name of a place that's in Hazel Crest that would be able to offer you what you're looking for." So I took the paper, forgot about it. Several more months went by. I'm cleaning off my dresser, run across the information, and the information is for you, Miss Doreen. And I start going to the website, and at first I was very interested in the Healy because it kind of reminded me of, it would create the balance that was taken out of my body. That's what I thought of the Healy as, kind of like acupuncture when they talk about meridian lines and those type of things. So I reached out to you first about the Healy. And then after I started doing it for a while and I saw some results, I went the next step, which was the detox program. So I don't believe in coincidences just because I don't. Um, I just find it very ironic that, the spa that I always go to, this one person who happened to be there shared with me the information. And I went back to the spa and the person is gone. So I don't know if she moved on to someplace else, but I kind of feel like, sometimes people are in place to give you the healing that you need. They're there to put you on the journey that you need to be on so that you can get the result that you want.
Absolutely. Wow. What a powerful story. So let me ask you this, because you said something that was very interesting. You said that you didn't have any symptoms or signs that you had fibroids. You said that the year before, when you went to your checkup, your to get your annual exam, that there was no indication of them. And in 1 year's time, you developed 6 large fibroids.
Yes.
Wow.
And I believe that one of the stressors that caused them was that my mother got very sick and ill. My mom always had a hernia. Everyone knew that. It wasn't a big deal. But she got her hernia surgery, and then a few months later, she had to get a bowel obstruction surgery. And that surgery is very intense. They had to cut out about 6 inches of her intestines. I thought she was going to die on more than one occasion because it was very stressful because every time I thought, okay, she's better, I get another call from the doctor that this went wrong, this went wrong, this went wrong, and this went wrong. And I'm just like, I don't care what's going wrong. That's my mother. Fix her. That was my mentality. I'm like, fix her. So I think the stress of almost losing her on more than one occasion, being her primary caregiver, and that surgery it drained her. It took a lot out of her. Even though my mom is in excellent shape, she takes care of herself. That surgery took its toll on her to the point where after the surgery was over, she had to see a cardiologist because the medication that they gave her to put her under made her heart enlarge. It made her get blood clots in her lungs. So she had to see a pulmonary specialist also. So after seeing, someone go through something like that with the tube up the nose and down the throat and being in intensive care and having a home health care nurse for 3 months, of course, I don't wanna go through surgery. Why would I ever wanna do that? Like, yes, you can cut them out, but it would seriously impact my quality of life. And I feel like my quality of life, that component is so important to me. You know, I just I can't really stress that enough because yes, anyone can get a tumor cut out of their body, but how is it going to impact you 2 months from now, let alone 2 years from now?
Did you have like really bad menstrual cycles? Did you have headaches, allergies? Those are things that we show usually in our teens that shows
I
estrogen.
did.
Okay.
I did,
Okay.
but now when I say I didn't have any symptoms, I mean obvious symptoms like, what the
Okay.
gynecologist asked me, because she was like, "Well, are you able to go to the bathroom and not have any problems?" I was
Right.
fine. I didn't have
Okay.
any backache, no. But about a year before I got diagnosed with this, I noticed that I would get like blemishes on my face, and normally they clear up 24, 48 hours. They wouldn't clear up for 3 or 4 months. My hair started falling off, not at the roots, but at the ends. So I had symptoms, but not the kind of symptoms where I would put two and two together and automatically think estrogen dominance. I went to a dermatologist. Well, that didn't really help. And back then, I wasn't really into Chinese medicine or your program. I never even heard of estrogen dominance until I started doing my own research. And when I was a young girl, 13, yeah, that's when I got my first cycle. My cramps were horrific. It's the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. And my parents did what most parents do. They took me to several gynecologists who thought, okay, well, maybe it's a growth. I did ultrasounds. They could never find anything. And so I was put on birth control pills, which
There it is. There it is.
probably wasn't the smartest thing, but sometimes when you have pain so bad, you just want it to stop. And something that's supposed to be so natural, like having a cycle, it's just ironic because we're taught, okay, women are supposed to have this, girls are supposed to have this. This is a normal part of biology. Yes, it's a normal part of biology, but I couldn't even function. You know, even when I had was taking birth control pills, I would feel awful on the first 2 days of my cycle. I would make myself go to class, but I just didn't feel well. And years of being on that combined with the stress of my mom almost dying, because my mom is my rock, her almost dying, it was just too much for my little body. Even while she was sick, yes, I was working out. Yes, I was eating healthy, but I wasn't doing anything to get rid of this estrogen dominance because I didn't even know what that was.
Didn't know. Exactly. And that's the
Didn't know what
whole
it
this.
was.
Yes, and this is one of the reasons that I wanted you to come on. Of course, we want to hear your amazing, your story, but I'm speaking to women and saying, listen, there's signs, and so we've never been educated about this. Like you said, you went to the doctor and they thought it was a growth. Like they don't even know back then at 10, 12, and 14 that we're showing signs of estrogen dominance, and that our liver, if they, we start cleaning our liver, that excess estrogen can process and we can have a normal life. So you said something that's so key. And I'm excited because I believe that everything that we go through, our test becomes a testimony, right? And so I feel that your testimony will definitely help to just kind of reiterate, one of the reasons that we resonated so well is because I dealt with 4 large fibroids and was told I needed to have a hysterectomy. And that was 10, 12 years ago. Um, and I was able to heal them naturally, which is what led me into this lifestyle. So, just our people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And so my mission this year is to get it out here and to save young women, especially women that are, young women that are in their teens up to 25. We can say, listen, these are the signs. We can catch you all now so you won't be where we are in our 40s and 50s, where we're now loaded with fibroids and dealing with infertility and dealing with cancer now, all different types of estrogen dominant cancers like breast cancer and things like that. So I'm just grateful for you to share your story. So let's move on a little bit. What have you tried? Just give me the brief version of things that you tried in the past prior to the program.
So prior to the program, I changed my diet. I stopped doing dairy. I cut back on red meat. So those things did help. I'm not saying that they didn't help, but what brought me over the hump was your program. It's been almost like it'll be 10 years in October. So when you have 10 years of time looking for a cure, looking for someone or something to heal you, you try a lot of different things. My hands were in a lot of different pots. I
Right.
tried a lot of different things. I experimented with a lot of different things. Like, okay, I don't like this. This didn't work for me. Or, okay, this works for me. Let me continue. So I have still continued to implement my lifestyle changes. One of the things that I still do is I still meditate. I still do yoga because those are the things that help to keep me balanced. When I feel overwhelmed, I need to have some kind of out that I can go to because, I don't drink nor do I smoke, which is not recommended at all, but especially if you have this condition. So I had to start looking at things differently. Someone told me one time, they said, yes, you have these tumors, but that's only one part of you. That's not the full picture of you. And even though I have these tumors, I have passed on the knowledge that I have to other women. It's so ironic because every time I had thought about getting the hysterectomy, I'll be out and about minding my own business at a store. Someone will come up to me and say, "Oh, are you pregnant?" And then I say, "No, I have these fibroid tumors." And then they'll say, "Oh, well, don't get that surgery. Don't do it." Random strangers, people that I don't even know. So that is telling me that I'm on the right path, that I'm on the right trail. Um, so even though this happened to me, I feel like, okay, yes, it happened to me, but I did what I was trained to do in school, which is research. So I feel like I do that very well. And it's kind of opened up my eyes to see things differently. For example, I know, okay, if I go to a gynecologist, 9 times out of 10, they're going to suggest that hysterectomy, especially if you're over a certain age, especially if you have kids. That is what they're going to suggest. That is their rule book. That is what they do. Now, I'm not saying that gynecologists are bad. No, but I'm just saying they're doing what they've been trained to do. That's what they're taught. You see a growth, you cut it out. But the downside of the hysterectomy is when they take everything out of your system, that's going to put you into medical menopause, which is worse because you're forcing your body to go through that. It's supposed to be a natural process. Then you're more likely for other infections, kidney, bladder, yeast infections. And then you need to talk about the psychological component of someone going in and taking out your body parts.
Exactly.
You were born with a uterus and all these reproductive organs. Now you're saying, okay, we don't need those things. And so now they're cutting them out. Well, what is the psychological ramifications of that? So it caused me to look at things not even two-dimensional, but just multi-dimensional. Like, okay, if I do this, what could possibly be the outcome for this? If I get the myomectomy, what can be the outcome? I talked to the surgeon and I asked her, I said, well, if I get this myomectomy, I believe, I hope I'm saying it right, but it's just where they go in and cut out the tumors. I said, well, you have to use pelvic floor mesh. She said, well, I don't know until I get in there. Now, we know from watching TV, how many of those commercials have we seen with law firms advertising, telling women, hey, if you've used pelvic floor mesh, please contact our law office because it's led to all these issues. That's a foreign substance that you're leaving in my body. I don't know the effect that it can have with that. Like, what
Yes.
if it perforates a bowel or another internal organ? So, you can't just look for the quick fix. There is no quick fix. It didn't take me quick, I didn't get sick overnight. So I'm probably not going to get well instantaneously. It would be nice,
Wouldn't it?
but you have to go through the process
That's true.
of
And
getting better.
and that actually leads me to, because I'm just, as you're talking, Leah, I'm just thinking like 10 years, this sister dealt with these growths in her body. And I've met you personally. You're very small, you're very petite, right? And so, I mean, they're very obvious to see, for someone like me, when I had them, I was, already pretty thick, I'm tall and, healthy. So yeah, it looked like I was pregnant, it looked like I was 6 months pregnant, but it wasn't probably as traumatizing as it was for you. Because I mean, those growths are extremely obvious in your body. And you dealt with that for 10 years. I dealt with mine from the time that I was told that I had them till the time that I went natural, did natural measures and got rid of them. I probably had them for about not even a full year, you know. And so that could be one of the reasons, now that you mentioned it, why it only took me 6 months to get rid of them. Because they say for every year that you've been dealing with something, you need, 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes, a couple of months. So that would make sense that it's taken a while. But just thinking of just the trauma, um, of you having to deal with this already, you're dealing with menstrual cycles that's been horrible since you were little, so that was traumatizing. And I think we experienced that when you were on my program. Like when it would come for your time of the month, you would become kind of anxious, and I
I
can see where that
would.
was from, because you dealt more than half of your life. Your time of the month has been very traumatic for you. So I can see where there will be some anxiety around that time of the month. Like that was a lot for you. And then just to deal with that for 10 years, sister, I just really, just commend you. You're so well spoken. You're very knowledgeable about this subject. Now, let me just imagine, just hearing your full story. I didn't hear the full story, but just hearing it now, I'm just going through the trauma that you've probably experienced. How did you feel when I was talking to you? And I think we did our one-on-one consultation. And I told you, about my program, the one-on-one holistic program, and that during this program, I would be with you every step of the way. Like I would hold your hand and just really work with you and walk you through and show you how to eat, as well as what herbs to take to start to heal your body. How did you feel about that?
I liked it because I felt like I needed someone to hold my hand, because I was on the supplements and I had this fear, okay, if I stop taking these supplements, that pain is going to come back. It didn't come back, but that was still a very much a part of the fear that I was experiencing in my mind. When you feel pain like that on a monthly basis, you never want it to come back, ever. I used to get pain so bad on the right side of my back, which is sorry, yeah, that would be my liver, wouldn't it?
Mhm.
Lower back.
Yep.
And it hurt so bad I thought I had kidney stones,
Mhm.
because it was just a pain that would only activate about 2 to 3 days before my cycle. Then it started coming more frequently, like 2 weeks before the cycle. Anything that was acidic that I ate, it would exacerbate it. So if I ate a little piece of pineapple, the next day I would probably be vomiting.
Mhm.
And that's what I would have to deal with every month, vomiting,
Wow.
projectile vomiting. So I
That
obviously
is
couldn't work.
so traumatizing. You know, I, I just have this gift of like really like I absorb people's like, I think about like what must this person have went through, and I see you as a little girl, as a youngster, in eighth grade, and on your first year in high school, just dealing with this trauma on top of everything else. You're dealing with puberty, you're growing, you're learning yourself, but you have this huge trauma that's with you, that's inside, that's living with you, this. And then I can just only imagine, how traumatic that has been for you. I really.
It was a lot. I mean, with the herbs that I'm sorry, not the herbs, the teas that I've been taking from you. I'm still doing the liver detox tea. I start taking that about 2 weeks before my cycle. And then I have the female health blend that I take the week of my cycle. Luckily, I'm not dealing with that. I'm not
That's awesome.
having, these horrific, PMS or cravings or cramping or anything else. I can go to work and function. Um, it's just very hard because, when people see me, they think that I'm pregnant. So when they ask, I either have the choice of saying no or I have the choice of telling them my story. And sometimes I don't know which one to do.
Right,
It makes
right.
dating very difficult and hard because when you meet someone, you have to tell him, okay, I look pregnant, but I'm not pregnant. This is what I have. This is what I've been dealing with. So it makes me very self-conscious because I know that they're there. And, I thought I was healthy. I would go to the doctor and get a physical like clockwork. And yes, in their mind, I was healthy because my blood pressure and cholesterol and all those things were normal. But that is why I like your program and, Chinese medicine as a whole, or programs where they look at the bigger picture, the underlying picture, which was I wasn't healthy. Because if I was healthy, then these wouldn't be here in the first place. My liver would have, swept them out and done what it needed to do. So that lets me know that, yes, I am getting better. Yes, I feel better, I look better, but there's still more work to be done.
That's right.
And
Yes.
I'm okay
Thank
with
you.
that because I don't want to shortchange it because, if I shortchange it, then they'll come back. I don't ever want them to come back. Like we've known each other for 10 years. That's 10 years too long. After they're gone, then I want that chapter of my life to be over and never repeat.
Absolutely. And then what's important is because you're doing the holistic way, is that you won't have to deal with the female cancers that most of my clients that have had fibroids 20 years ago, at your age, in their 30s and 40s, or, and most of them had hysterectomies. Now they're dealing with female cancers. Why? Because we never got to the root cause of the problem. If they're not dealing with female cancers, they're dealing with, severe diabetes, high blood pressure that they can't get under control, autoimmune disease, carpal tunnel, bowel obstruction, all these different things, because the thing that caused, the liver did not metabolize the excess estrogen back then, so they snatched your uterus out, but your liver's still not metabolizing. On top of that, now you probably have medications and all these other things your liver put in process. So it's just been piling up. A lot of them have gallbladder removal because, it's just a domino effect. So, we'll be able to head off those. So, what health benefits did you see during the program? Like when you did when did you do the program?
I was still doing the program in December, so I think I finished in January.
Okay, so probably no end of November, right after
Mhm.
Thanksgiving, through January. Okay. And what health benefits did you see during that time?
Well, with your program, I like how, every week it's something different for me because your program is not cookie cutter. So what you would do for me may be different from for someone else. And that is hard to find, I feel like, because women are not all the same. It's not monolithic. We're different. So what works for one person may not work for me and vice versa. So when we started off, I want to say we started off with the liver detox.
Mhm.
So I started noticing that my skin started clearing up. Then I think the week after that, it was like the blood detox. And then I did that wormwood tea. And I saw some of the parasites when I would go into the bathroom. So it was one
Wasn't
of
that
those
shocking?
I know it
Sorry,
was
wasn't that,
disgusting.
everyone always tells me, they're like, there's no way I don't have I don't have parasites. And then when they get to that part of the program and they come out, they're like, I would never have thought they were
Yeah,
inside of me.
it
So
was
yeah.
disgusting. But
Mhm.
the point is you want the things that are in you that are not supposed to be in you to come out. And that is exactly what happened. So, when you start walking this path of being healthy, it's not just doing one thing. I wish it was like that. I wish it could be like, okay, I can just drink a glass of water That's it. I don't have to worry about anything else. I don't have to do anything else. But it's not just one thing, it's the totality of many different things. So, while I was doing your program, when I was able to, I was still out hiking. I was still out, meditating. I was still taking care of myself in other ways just to continue the detoxification of getting these things out of my body. So, it was hard because there was a point in it where it was all liquids. So I'm like, "Oh my goodness, this is gonna be hard." I mean, the liquids were good, but still, I'm like, "Okay, it's close to Christmas and I'm seeing all these delectable delights. I can't eat that. I have to, stick to the regimen," which was difficult, but I felt like it was worth it. And plus my mom did the program too because she had elevated high blood pressure that would not go down, even with diet and exercise. So she was able to do your program as well. And guess what? Her pressure went down by like 30 points. So she
Yes.
is now in normal range of her blood
Yes.
pressure.
I love it. And I use her as an example a lot because, I don't, of course, tell her business, but I say I have a client, that had high blood and lived a healthy lifestyle, could not figure out, what to do. Of course, was obviously avoiding salt and things like that, but still had this blood pressure. But me as a holistic practitioner, I know those are toxins. Everyone else thinks, okay, let me avoid fat and let me avoid salt and let me avoid this. But we got to get those toxins out. When you get those toxins out, your liver's going to process that excess. So it's going to, your blood pressure is going to come down because that's causing, when the liver's toxic, it's causing pressure on your arteries and your blood vessels. So yeah, it was fun to have you and your mom together as clients. That was a lot of fun too.
I think of it as like a knight, like if you think of King Arthur and his knights, where yes, knights are protected, they're in armor, they have the sword and the shield and all those things. So the armor would represent the body. And the liver cannot function if it keeps getting hit with toxicity. If you never clear it out, it's going to get slower and slower and slower. It's just like, yes, someone having armor, yes, you're protected, but if someone keeps hitting you in the same spot over and over and over again, the armor is going to get weakened and it's going to break. So with the liver, yes, it's strong. Yes, it's resilient. But if you have never been cleared out to this level, then I can probably guarantee it's not functioning at 100%.
That's right.
Regardless of
That's
how good you think you're eating it or how much water you're drinking, it's still not functioning at 100%. Because if it was
right.
functioning at 100%, you're not going to get sick like that.
Right. And that's true. And we get to a point where even us that's, all living these healthy lifestyles, we're doing so many different things. Our liver needs a break from that too. All those supplements that we're doing, all these different things. So your liver has to process all of that, so if it, like you said, and that was the whole purpose of the program, it's your phase one was your kidney and liver,
Hmm.
with your food and your teas that were all geared towards the kidney and liver. The second week was phase two was adrenals and colon or digestive system, I think. And all of that is leading up to that third week that third phase that you mentioned, which is where you're not eating, you're just drinking smoothies and juice, because that is that intense week where we're getting out parasites, yeast, bacteria, toxins, and all of that. And I haven't had a client yet that hasn't had, like, they're all shocked, like, I never would have thought that was in my body. I don't care how clean you live, how and then the body really starts showing some amazing things after that. So I was really impressed with the fact that you and your mother, both y'all, stuck to the program very well. Matter of fact, everyone pretty much sticks to the program, and everyone says what helps is the fact that they know I'm going to call you
Right.
because when
Because
you're
it's
working
like
with me, yeah,
you're the motivation. Like, okay,
yeah,
I need you to get me through this.
yes,
January
yes,
1st is coming. That's usually when people, are with their family and their friends and they're eating
right.
and doing all this stuff. But, you know, it was difficult, but it was worth it. So I don't have any regrets. I think my only regret is that I wish I had discovered you 10 years ago. I don't even know if you were doing this work 10 years ago, but I felt like I could have, saved myself a lot of just heartache and pain, because it's kind of like it's very hard. It's almost like peer pressure. When you go to the doctor and then you go to a second doctor and a third doctor and a fourth doctor, and all of them are telling you you need a hysterectomy. I
Yeah.
almost had to ignore all of that, just
Mhm.
go in, get my test, get my checkup, and just ignore that component and just kind of shut it off like it was a
Yeah.
room and I'm closing the door.
Yeah, yeah, that I definitely know what you mean. Just like when once I healed once my body was healed of the fibroids and I had lost most of the weight and all of that, and I came back 6 months later, I naively thought the doctor would be happy. Like, because I thought that doctors were in the business of saving people, they wanted you to get well, right? And I'm not saying anything bad about them. I always say this because if I have a car accident today and I break my leg, I don't want you to bring me to a holistic practitioner. I want you to take me to let the doctors work on me, okay?
Right,
If I have
right.
an emergency. But when it comes to self-care, wellness care, healing yourself, they're not in that's not their business. Their business is to get in there and fix the symptom, so your fibroids are a symptom. People, I have clients right now with breast cancer. That's a symptom, and so the doctors are trained to go in there and take the symptoms out, take that check engine light and say, we're not going to try and figure out why the check engine light is on. We're just going to snatch that engine light out, but what caused the check engine light to come on? And so fibroids, tumors, growths, those are all symptoms of a much bigger problem. And so, they're not really in the business. They're in the business to either give you medication, to fix it, or refer you to surgery. And the medication, we all know you're going to be on that. I have never seen a person yet that doesn't go on this miracle round. You take a medication, 6 months later, you're going to have another issue. You're not going to even know that that's part of that's, a result of that medication. You're going to be on another medicine and you're going to be on a downward spiral. So usually they start on medicines in their 40s. By the time they're in their 60s, most of the people I see have 7, 8, 9, 10 medications. And I'm like, why are you taking this? Well, I think I'm taking this. Well, I don't know. I think I'm taking this because it's a side effect of, they don't even know anymore. They have so many medications. So, it's about taking your health into your own hands, learning God has put these things here for us. Every herb, every single thing that I recommended for you and your mother and every other client that I'm working with now and working in the past comes right from the earth. It's nothing that man put together or made himself. Everything that I recommend, you may have a week where you're eating organic red grapes, every day. And the reason why is because they help to break up, growths and things like that. Where, that may be your lunch. You're eating organic blueberries, which are good for the kidneys, and you're boiling these teas, and the teas are specific for your condition. Those are all things that God put here for us. They're all natural herbs, um, so I'm so glad, I'm glad that you all stuck to the program. I'm glad that you saw results. One of the things that I really enjoyed when I would talk to you is when you started saying that you were seeing them breaking up. You were seeing like mucus and talk about that a little bit.
Well, it's not a pretty sight.
That's okay. That's okay. It's the body, honey. We're all good.
It's not a pretty sight, but when they break up, they look like muscle tissue. So I would go to the bathroom and I would see what looked like muscle tissue in the water. I'm like, okay, this is good. They're leaving. Um, you know, this condition is horrific. This walk that I've been walking has been very difficult. It has been very hard. But what gives me solace is the fact that I can now take the knowledge that I have learned and pass it on to other people. Not even other women, I say other people because men are dealing with a component of this too, because they're married to a woman, or maybe they have a sister or a mother or another woman in their family who is dealing with this. So the fact that I can take my knowledge and pass it on gives me solace. But I'm still in the process of healing. You mentioned red grapes. I have some downstairs. They're organic, of course. I'm still eating organic blueberries. I have been eating more and more berries. Not every day, of course, but I have implemented them into my diet because they're so healthy and they're so good for you. And then when I was doing the program, I was on the berries, the blueberries. I started doing more passion fruit and dragon fruit, and I can feel the difference in my body when I'm consuming organic fruit. Um, I feel a lot better.
Yeah, it's one of the
Uh,
most on the planet.
you said
Berries.
what now? Really?
Berries are one of the most healing foods on the planet.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes,
Well,
ma'am. Cranberries, blueberries, raspberries, acai berries, like they go on and on. But blueberries are one of the most high, they're superfoods, you know.
okay.
Yeah, so they're amazing. But I just, I know that, it's a Friday night. I'm sure you have things to do. So I'm gonna kind of wrap it up. But what would
Okay.
you what advice do you give to those who are suffering from health issues and concerns like yours? Like, let me step back for a second. What I found in my research and my passion is to help over 100,000 people, especially women, especially my Black women, right? Because in doing my research, I found that Black women are the highest, out of all the cultures, Black women have the most incidence of fibroids. We have like a 60% out of 100, 60 out of 100 women get fibroids. And over half of those have hysterectomies. Okay,
Mm,
that bothers me because, like I said, even now, I want to say in just the last 3 months, I've met about 20 different women have come to me, for help and with consultations about their health issues, and more than 90% of those women have had hysterectomies. These are good women, intelligent women, well-spoken women, educated women, and they never had kids. They never had children because they dealt with these estrogen dominance and
right.
hysterectomies and miscarriages and things like that. And so um, there's definitely something going on. There's a reason that us as black women, why are we suffering more from fibroids than other cultures, than Asian women, Caucasian women, Indian women? Um, why are we having hysterectomies? Why are we the highest on the planet having our uterus taken out? Why do they constantly tell us to get our uterus taken out? I want to just say this, and then I'm going to pass it back to you. The doctor told me, and this stays with me. I definitely am not making this a racial issue because I'm not. I love all cultures, and I love. I have friends, and in all cultures. But the doctor did say to me at that day when I said, "What are fibroids?" And he's like, "Oh, there's just something that we don't know where." I said, "Well, where do they come from? We don't know, but Black women get them," is what he said. African American women get them, and I said, "Well, is there something that I'm doing or that I should stop doing?" And he said, "No, they just happen." He said, "You'll just do a hysterectomy." And I said, "Well, maybe I don't want a hysterectomy. That sounds kind of harsh. That's scary to me." I said, "What are the repercussions?" "Oh, you'll be fine. You're almost 40. You have 3 sons already. You're not planning on having any more anyway, I hope." I hope. That right there said, you know what? I'm gonna go look into some other things. I don't like that. Why are you telling me like you're just offering a hysterectomy like it's $1 million, like it's like the next best thing? Even though I was in a lot of pain, it would have been so easy. My family, they're like, "Please get the hysterectomy, D, please, because you're in so much pain." It was hard for them to see me like that. That pressure for us to just snatch our uteruses out, and now all these women that I know that never had children. Think about the strong children, that are missing in this world that we could have had from these intelligent women that never had children because of the issues that they dealt with, because they gave them a hysterectomy instead of saying, "You know what? You have estrogen dominance. Let's clean out your kidneys, your liver, and your colon, and guess what? All of that's going to flush out." you know so my goal is to, like I said, to help the young women to say, I want to make it mainstream, just like it's mainstream in the Black community for us to have, well, that's in all cultures, but especially in our culture, to have these big old plates of macaroni and cheese and greens and turkey and dressing and all this for Thanksgiving. Well, my goal before I leave this earth is to make it where it's a tradition and mainstream for families to say, okay, you all, this is the start of the spring. Let's do our spring cleaning. We're all going to, for 10 to 14 days, we're just going to all eat nuts, nothing but nuts, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. Everybody will be cleaning their bodies out. So guess what? The liver will clean out and it'll start processing that excess estrogen, you know? So if we made that mainstream and every family did that 3 to 4 times a year, do you know what would happen? How many people we can save?
Probably less Black women would be diagnosed with uterine fibroid tumors. I feel like there's a medical discrepancy because Black women are given hysterectomies at a higher rate. And I knew that going in. That's why I did not let them touch me. I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, you're not touching me. And I've been to, I'm not going to mention the name of the hospital, but, Illinois is known for top hospitals in this state. And I've seen so many doctors where it's just like, I almost don't want to do it anymore. I almost don't want to do it anymore because it was very traumatic. I've had that doctor told me that I was old and that I should just get the hysterectomy. And
Sounds like what he said to me.
I'm just like, no,
Wow.
I never went back. But a lot of times I think we have to change our mindset. Just because someone went to medical school, it doesn't mean that they know everything. You have to trust yourself and follow your intuition. And my intuition has always told me, do not get that hysterectomy, do not get that myomectomy. There has got to be another way. So I think sometimes we're taught to not question a doctor because we think, okay, they went to medical school and I didn't. Doesn't matter. You can't override my own tuition from my body. Like, this is my body. I know when something is off. I know when I don't feel good. I know when something isn't right. And that's what I tell myself. And actually, I can remember as a little girl, my dad would tell me that. He would say, Leah, it's okay for you to ask questions to a doctor. If they cannot stand up under the pressure, then maybe you should switch doctors. If you're upset that I'm asking you questions, then what does that say about you in this whole process? I feel like women need to educate themselves. Don't go in there blindly. Know your options. Just because somebody makes the suggestion for the hysterectomy, that doesn't mean that I have to do what you suggest. That's your suggestion, which doesn't mean it's a fact. That means it's a suggestion. There's a difference. So that's what I tell myself. And I still go to the doctor. I don't want people to walk away and think I'm telling them to not go to the doctor. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you need to educate yourself about this condition that faces Black women. And the more knowledge that you have, the less likely someone will be able to just come in and tell you anything because you already know the facts and the figures in your mind. No one in my family had uterine fibroid tumors to my knowledge, but you know what they did have? Painful periods. On my dad's side of the family, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my great-great-grandmother, painful periods were a part of the tradition and the bloodline of my family. Endometriosis runs in my family, as well as ovarian cysts. And these are the things like the elephant in the room that no one wants to talk about. We should be, Christmas dinner, holiday dinner, that's fine, but we need to be discussing our family lineage and our family tree. I had no idea that those things ran in the family until I got diagnosed. And
Right.
then you get family
That's
members who
the
are like, oh, well, Aunt such and such, she had that, or she didn't have what you had, but she had ovarian cysts. But why are we not talking about this? It's
yeah,
nothing to be ashamed of. We need to be sharing our secrets and stop making it a secret. We need to be sharing this information with each other. Because if I had known that this ran in my family, I would have been doing something different. Now, I don't know if things would have turned out differently. If I would have told the doctor, hey, uterine fibroid tumors run in my family, what can you do? Or maybe it would have just led me on the path to do my own research. I'll never know because I wasn't given that option. But I really feel like we need to start sharing those things with each other. Make a new tradition. If it's your tradition in your family to not share, create a new tradition where we start sharing our family history, our lineage, and we talk about these things, not just women's issues, but men issues too, because
yeah.
I feel like it's a lot of men that are walking around that probably have health issues, that have probably run in their family, that have not been addressed because they don't even know about it. So it's kind of like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop.
And just to piggyback off that, because you're right, when I do the speeches about women and the whole hysterectomy and us dying, I mean us having hysterectomies more than other cultures, I also talk about men because they're all hormonal imbalances, right? And so unfortunately, Black men are dying at a much higher. First of all, Black men are getting prostate cancer higher than any other race, and then they're dying. Black men are dying at a higher rate than any other race from prostate cancer. And once again, that's a hormonal imbalance. So again, it goes back to the liver. It's not processing that excess testosterone, excuse me. And eventually, by the time they get in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, they start to show signs of it. They usually first start having a lot of digestive disorders and, indigestion and gastritis and all of this. Well, no, that's actually the liver, that's the liver saying that's enough. I'm overwhelmed. And so, we talk about men and their beer bellies. Those are not truly beer bellies. Those are your liver again, So if we all as a family started doing, just think, I know for myself, if I when I was in my, at 15 years old, if I had started, it was a tradition just to clean my body once every 3 months or 4 months, just stop eating anything, no bread, no cheese, no meat or anything, just eat but fruit, whatever fruit and vegetable I want, whatever nuts, seeds, herbs, even maybe some brown rice or things like that, but just eat from the ground. I know that things would have turned out differently. You know what I mean? So, and then too, it's not just food. I don't want everybody to think it's just all about food. It's about, because during your program, I had you all doing lymphatic showers, lymphatic brushing. You had meditation
Right.
consistently. So there was a lot of other things that were done. So it's not just food, and it's definitely your mindset, so I just think that if we, together, you're so well spoken, like I say, you're very educated on this subject, and you're a great example of how you can take your health back into your own hands and don't let the doctors just snatch your uterus out. And I see once you heal, because you are going to, be completely healed. I see it happening probably before the end of this year. Those fibroids will be completely gone. You're seeing evidence that they're
I
breaking down. Have you
I
been?
do. I accept that. Your mind over matter. Whatever you believe, that is what you are going to manifest.
Right.
So sometimes people's belief stops them because they may be hesitant to try a program like this because they're so used to Western medicine. And don't get me wrong, Western medicine has its place. But if you've tried Western medicine and it hasn't worked, it's time for you to try something different, try something new. It's not too late. It's not too late to turn the ship around. You can turn it around, you can turn the outcome around. You just have to believe and make the first step. The first step is always the hardest, but I feel like it is absolutely worth it.
That's right. And that sums it all up. So just to sum everything up, you said that are you sleeping better? Right?
I am, because, it would be hard sometimes for me to just shut my mind off. So a lot of these meditations that you gave me helps me to go into a deeper sleep. Like I would sleep like a newborn baby,
Yes, they're so
especially with those
important.
lymphatic showers and keeping the lymph system clean. And I'm still doing other things too. Like I still get my massage therapy because my lymphatic massages, because that is keeping my lymph system clean. So I feel like sometimes when people do a program and they get off of it, they want to go back to exactly what they were doing before. Well, you can't go back exactly to what you were doing before. I'm still doing a lot of the fruit smoothies that you suggested. That I consume. And I'm still doing things to detoxify my body. So I still get lymphatic massages, I still get ionized foot baths. And those things are helping to detoxify my body to get me back to the level. I don't even want to say what I was, because I honestly don't think I was ever really healthy. I don't. I think I would go to the doctor and they say, okay, your blood pressure is 110/70, your all of your blood work looks normal, you're fine. But I really was not fine. It's just that I had all these symptoms and I didn't know what to make of them. So I want to go back to, I guess it wouldn't even be going back, because I don't think I ever was completely healthy. I want to be completely healthy. So when you want to be completely healthy, you're going to have to walk a different walk, do a different path. When I make greens, how many times have you been to someone's house and they're putting all that, sugar or butter or all those things? I've found simple recipes where I'm mixing kale, Swiss chard, and collards, and I'm sauteing it on the stove, and I'm not adding any meat. I'm just doing seasonings and spices. So the program has definitely caused me to look at things in a different way. Sometimes we're under the impression that, okay, well, my blood pressure is normal, my cholesterol is normal, I'm healthy. No, we have
Right.
to look deeper than that. We have to look deep.
Exactly. Exactly. And so you have and that's phenomenal. So you have better sleep, less, you're not having pain when your cycles come.
Absolutely not. No pain at all. I
And
can't even remember, like last month, I didn't really have any symptoms, because before I started working with you, I would be so tired I could barely function. Now I don't have that issue. I mean, I'm not going out to run a marathon, but I wasn't doing that anyway because I don't like to run. But
right.
if I went to work, I wouldn't have any issues. I wouldn't have any problems. It would just be like a normal day for me with no problems.
Mhm, mhm. So you're having no pain, no, and like I said, that was huge for you because you were very, very. I remember every time when your cycle was getting ready to come, you were very like anxious, and I get it
Yeah.
now. Why? So now you're no longer having pain during your cycles. You've seen evidence of the of tissues breaking up and coming out of you. You've released a lot of parasites. You're functioning so much better. And I'm waiting for your ultrasound because I know, like I said, for me, when I first went back, it was 4 months, 4 to 6 months after I started, my holistic living, and 3 of the fibroids were gone, 3 of the 4, right? And then
Oh,
when
wow.
and the doctor said, "Oh no, that's a mistake. They just made a mistake. I've never seen fibroids disappear like that, right?" And I was all excited, like thinking we were going to rejoice together, He's like, "No." So he hurried up and got me. I'm like, "No, doctor, I promise you I changed my lifestyle." He didn't want to hear that. But when I came back, because he figured that it was a mistake, that they just didn't see him on the ultrasound, when I came back 2 months later, now the fourth fibroid, because remember I had 4 large ones. The fourth fibroid was so small and tiny you couldn't even really see it on the ultrasound anymore. So he had to admit at that time that something phenomenal had happened, but he wasn't real interested in going into it. He wanted me to hurry and get out of his office because he didn't want his other patients to hear that. So I say that to say is that it was gradual. They didn't just disappear overnight. And remember, I was only dealing with those for maybe, they probably were percolating in my body longer than I'm aware of. But when I was aware of it, it was only about a year. You've been dealing with yours for 10 years. So you're seeing
Right.
signs of them coming out. You're seeing signs of tissue coming out, mucus, and other things that we talked about. You're having the fact that you're not having those painful cycles lets you know now that your body's starting to process that estrogen. You're probably not loaded with so much estrogen. You've probably gotten a lot of the excess estrogen out your body. I'm happy. I'm so happy. This was such a great interview. I am looking for a follow-up probably in about 6 to 9 months where you're going to be able to stand up and say, look, Doreen, I have a flat stomach now. They're gone. And I can't wait to get your ultrasound because I already know when you get your ultrasound, you're going to see a difference.
Yeah, I believe that. I would like to leave everyone with a few words, which are believe the impossible. Sometimes I think we stop our own progress because we think, oh, that can't happen. They can't go away. She can't heal that. She can't do what she says. Well, believe the impossible. I feel like we believe in everything else.